So welcome everyone. My name is Amy Leach. I am one of the coaches with the Heartland Foundation, and I'm also one of the coaches that almost always does financial aid. I will do our FAFSA webinar in October. It's kind of one of my areas of expertise. So I am happy to be here tonight to talk to you a little bit about college funding basics and kind of in general, the financial aid process and what that's going to look like. I'm going to try to answer questions off the chat line, or if you have a question, you can raise your hand. I'm not super great at that technology, so we'll see how I do with that. But if you put stuff in a chat line when I pause at certain sections for questions, you can either ask them verbally and unmute yourselves, or you can put it in the chat line and I will do my best to answer it. I ask you not to ask any specific financial questions. I want to keep them general and I don't want to invade your private financial information. So with that, we'll get started. There we go. So tonight really we're going to talk about some of the basics of financial aid. I'm going to cover some stuff on FAFSA and what that is, CSS profile and what that is, a little bit about scholarships and how to look for them and how to use them to your advantage. So the first thing we're going to talk about is some basic need to know information about financial aid. So there are two types of financial aid. There's need-based financial aid, and when you talk about FAFSA and the free federal financial aid form, that is all about financial need. So we're talking about your family income and your adjusted family income. What I want families to understand about this is even if you have full financial need, that does not mean that it's going to cover the cost of college. The average Pell Grant is $6,000 a year, which doesn't come near to covering the cost of college tuition and fees and housing. That number also changes every year based on the federal grant to colleges. All students, if they fill out a financial aid form, will qualify for a student loan. Student loans are regulated, and so freshmen can only get, this year, freshmen can only get $5,500 in student loans. Again, that number isn't solid. It fluctuates year to year. And this year's student loan interest rate is 2.45. It's the lowest student loan interest rate we've ever seen. Last year, to give you an example, the student loan interest rate was 4.75. Just so you have a sense of how low that truly is for this year's upcoming freshmen in college, and any student who's currently in college who takes a student loan. What? That's not supposed to do that. If a family's income, adjusted gross income, is over $75,000, you are not going to qualify for need-based financial aid, okay? But that doesn't mean you shouldn't fill it out. Additionally, in California, if your family's income is over $75,000 but below $150,000, you can qualify for a Cal Grant. And California is one of the few states that does specifically the Cal Grant. Different states have different programs, but the Cal Grant is very specific to income. In Colorado, we have a COF agreement where it reduces your in-state tuition, but it doesn't have anything to do with your family's income. And again, regardless of your family's income, you're going to fill out the FAFSA. And if you're attending a private school, you're going to fill out a CSS profile. And a CSS profile is a profile that's used by private institution, and it looks more broadly at family's income and family debt. So the FAFSA is purely based on income and assets. CSS profile looks much more broadly at that. So there are two types of financial aid: merit-based aid and need-based aid. And we're going to talk about merit-based aid first, because this is something that students have some control over. There's no guarantee you're going to get merit-based aid, but you at least have some control. Student grades impact merit-based aid. a great example of this is several schools have, if you have a certain SAT score and a certain GPA, they combine those together and you get a reduction in your out-of-state tuition or a reduction in your in-state tuition. Lots of schools do that. University of Arizona, University of Utah are probably two of the biggest ones that are known for that. And it is fairly generous. The higher your test scores, the higher your grades, the more generous that grant is. So solid grades. If you're an athlete and do sports, you can get funding for that. Don't count on a sports scholarship. Division I athletic scholarships are 1% of the high school student athletic population. Just so you understand that number. It's not a lot of kids who get what you see as full ride Division I scholarships. Talent, lots of money in talent. Art, music are the two. Theater are the biggest known ones. But students can get awards for robotics, specific work they've done, specific research they've done. Those are the type of things that go in that category. And then different colleges have different programs. So if you take a college that has a really low student population of women, say in their math major, they may grant a female student funding because they're a female student who does really well in math, and they've decided to be a math major. That's just an example of some of the other types of merit-based aid. All merit-based aid is determined by the college and the individual college. So we can't say, you can't ask your coach or ask somebody, well, how much merit money am I gonna get? Because none of us know that. Every college is different. Every college determines that differently. All I can say to a student is put yourself in the best light possible to receive some merit aid. Outside of merit aid, there are scholarships, and there are lots of these. Scholarship opportunities increase the older you get. So if you're a freshman or a sophomore right now, even a junior, there aren't a ton of scholarships out there for you to apply to. But you can look for them, and you can look for ones that you're kind of a match for. And then you can do some work to make yourself the most qualified student for that scholarship. So don't, as a freshman, sophomore, junior, not look at scholarships. Really start looking at them. If there's ones that are a pretty good match for you, what else can you do to make yourself be a really good scholarship candidate for them? Most opportunities for underclassmen, freshmen, sophomores, juniors come in the form of essay scholarships. Every US president has an essay scholarship they put out every year. Freshmen in high school can write essays for those, and they can be awarded those scholarships. And then essentially what those companies do is they hold those scholarships in trust until the student enrolls in college, and then they send the funding to the college. Talent-based scholarships, music, art, ceramics, art contests, those scholarships underclassmen are always available for. Poetry, there's lots of poetry contests if you have a student who's into poetry. Those types of scholarships are out there. You as a student want to maximize your opportunity to receive scholarships. So finding scholarships like I was talking about that you could be eligible for and then working to meet their requirements. Diversifying your experiences so that when you come in for a scholarship application, you look like a really well-rounded student, not just in one small area. And apply for as many scholarships as possible. The ones that take a little more work, that have essays, that have, there are a lot of video contests out there right now. So if you're a student who's willing to create a little bit of a video and that's something you enjoy, check those out. A lot of the ads you're seeing currently on YouTube and Snapchat and Instagram, all those places are student created videos that the company essentially owns the rights to, but the students get a scholarship for their creation and their creativity. So don't be afraid to look for those. Scholarship resources. So here's a big list of scholarship resources for you guys. My number one source is ask your high school counselor for local scholarships. This is where the bulk of the students I have coached over the past 10 years have received scholarship money. Local scholarships have less people applying for them. There's less competition. So, and they can be fairly substantial awards, $500, $1,000, a couple $1,000. Local chambers of commerce, local businesses, parents, places of work. My husband works for Comcast. Comcast awarded 20 scholarships in the state of Colorado last year. They gave away over 100 in the state of Pennsylvania where their headquarters is. And those all went to employees' children. And those were the only kids who could apply for those scholarships. So check with your place of work as a parent. Does your company, does what's above your company offer a scholarship for children of employees? Because a lot less kids are going to apply for those, so odds of getting them go up significantly. There's an app called My Scully. It was developed by a kid who had a smartphone but did not have access to a computer when he was applying to colleges and scholarships. He got on Shark Tank, got it funded. It is an amazing app. It's on your phone. You can fill out your profile and it generates scholarships for you on a regular basis. The coolest thing I love about it is right on there under the description, it's apply for the scholarship. You click to it, it takes you straight to the scholarship application. So it saves a ton of time. Now it's $4.99 for the year or $7.99 a month. It's been my experience, it is well worth that if you as a student is willing to do the work. Like if you're gonna apply for scholarships on a weekly basis, get the My Scully app. Absolutely, I would absolutely encourage you to do that. If you're like, well, I might apply for a scholarship here, a scholarship there, probably not worth the funding. If you are a member of the Heartland College Planning Program, if you've signed up for the Heartland College Planning Program, our Cooter software has an excellent scholarship search engine. It's under the Plan for Education tab on that left side. You fill in your profile, so it specifies scholarships for you, and it generates tons of scholarships. Now, I want to caution you on that most of those scholarships in Cooter are for seniors only. So if you're looking at those as a freshman and sophomore, you can tag them in there as your favorite and go back and look at them as a senior. But just know most of them are going to be for seniors. Fastweb.com is a free scholarship search engine, and unigo.com is also a free scholarship search engine. Okay. All right, I am going to take a second there and ask if there are any questions. And so one just popped up on the line. Are there any scholarships easier to qualify for? There are lots of scholarships that are pretty easy to qualify for. A lot of them are contests. You know, the one I didn't put on here, and I'm going to have to add to my slide, is raiseme.com, and it raiseme.com. And that one, essentially, as you do activities, as you volunteer, as you do those types of things, you fill it into your Raise Me account, and different schools will show you what kind of funding they will offer you based on what you've done. If you've competed in a sport, if you've competed in robotics, if you've done speech and debate team, if you've volunteered at your church, if you've volunteered in your local community, all of that is there. Yes, there are scholarships for autistic students. Just Google it. If you Google it, you will find it. Any specialty area that a student has, if you Google search it, there's a scholarship for left-handed students. I point out that it exists, but it only exists at like 4 different colleges, but it's still out there. So just consider there's scholarship for people who are really tall. So if you are a male over 6'4" or a female over 6 foot tall, you can qualify for the tall person scholarship. Lots and lots of scholarships based on ethnicity. Asian Pacific Foundation, Women in Engineering, Black Student Alliance, all those organizations, lots of scholarships. So go ahead and Google what your ethnic background, or if you speak a foreign language, or if English isn't your first language. All those things are worth Googling and looking for scholarships. They're asking about FastWeb. FastWeb just produces general scholarships. That's why I like the MyScully app so much better, because MyScully allows the student to drill down and put in their profile better. So they're looking at scholarships that they are much better qualified for than FastWeb. It's just really super broad and really general scholarships. Okay. The next thing I'm going to talk about is need-based financial aid and how all those financial aid forms are processed. This is super exciting stuff. No, but it's really important to understand what's happening. So when you fill out your FAFSA and your financial aid form, they are going to look at your assets, and they're going to both look at parent assets and student assets. An asset is your bank account, your investments, business and farm assets, investment properties. Things that don't count as assets, cars, boats, trucks, RVs, all that stuff. Cash value of life insurance, annuities, retirement plans don't count against that. So know that those things don't count against you. I love, and it's worth talking to your financial planner about, is the cash value of life insurance. Because as a parent, you can borrow against that cash value and pay yourself back with interest, but you're paying yourself that interest rather than paying interest to another entity. So if that's something you're interested in or considering, please talk to your financial planner about that, because it could be a solid investment. Other things that financial aid looks at, they look at income. So for students, they're going to look at wages, retirement income, income from business, interest, dividends, child support, Social Security, public assistance, and retirement contributions all count as income. But as a student, if you are a student who's working on a federal work-study program, that funding does not count. Food stamps don't count. Pension rollovers don't count as income. Stocks, if you sold them, count as income. Stocks sitting in their account count as assets, and they will look at those differently. Let's see. I think there's a question on the chat line I'm going to try and get to. Yes, 529s are counted as assets. And a 529 is best if it's in the parent's name with the student as the sub underneath it, because parents' assets are looked at much lower and counted against you much lower than a student asset is. Yeah, threshold for family income is $75,000. If your family income is above $75,000, you're not getting need-based financial aid. Sorry, I didn't read the question first. But so when you think about filling out your financial aid form, those are the type of things you're going to use to fill it out. And I'm going to point something else out here. Nobody in this room, unless you have a current college student, should be filling out a financial aid form right now. October 1st is when financial aid forms open up for the following year. So if you have a rising senior student who's going to start their senior year in the fall, October 1 is when you're going to fill out your FAFSA and CSS profile. If you are filling that out now, you just did a lot of work that isn't going to count for anything. I always harass people about that because it always happens every year. I get a student who's super excited and fills out their FAFSA in July. But every year that your student is in college or that your student is in college, you're going to fill out the FAFSA every October. Just going to do it. I have a question over here of how many years will the parent income be counted? Parent income is used on a student account until the student reaches the age of 25. If the student becomes married before then, they no longer count on their parents. If the student has a dependent child before the age of 25, they are no longer counted on their parents' income. Or if the student joins the military. Those are the four things that'll disqualify a student from going under their parents' income. Otherwise, parent income counts for student financial aid until the age of 25. So I'm going to talk about some of the steps in the financial aid process. And what I want families to understand is the financial aid process, it's not an instant process. It's a little bit time consuming, and it takes a little while because you're going to fill out a FAFSA in October and you're probably not going to hear back. You might hear back in December or January. Most likely you're not going to hear back till March or even late April on your child's funding for college. So know that it's a multi-level process and it's a multi-tiered process that takes time. Additionally, each college has its own process. So what is true for one college isn't necessarily true for another. So students and parents submit their financial aid information every year they attend college. So starting fall of senior year of high school through completion of college. Then financial aid is processed each year. So as your income changes each year, the financial aid award processes and changes each year. So here's kind of the flow chart of how this all works. Whoopsies. I have gigantic chat screen in front of me. You complete your FAFSA. It goes to the federal processor. They determine what is called EFC, your expected family contribution. This is how much annually your family is expected to pay towards your child's college tuition. 0 means no expected contribution. You have large financial need. I have seen EFCs as high as $96,000, okay? So just be aware, that number, and most of the time when most families see it, they say something like, there is no way I could pay that much each year towards college. So know that number is, but that's what it is. From that, they generate what's called a student aid report. The student aid report will show if the student qualifies for student loans, if they qualify for Pell Grant, if they qualify for any form of federal financial aid. But the student aid report is only federal financial aid, not school aid. This report, if everything is good, goes to the college financial aid office, okay? The other thing that goes to a college financial aid office is at every private school, they have you fill out what's called a CSS profile. This is more in depth, more information. It goes to their processing. They generate what's called an institutional expected financial contribution. This is often very different from what the federal expected family contribution is, because CSS profile looks at things more broadly and they include debt in their figuring of their EFC. This also goes to the college financial aid office. Other funding a student has, outside scholarships, merit money from the college goes to the college financial aid office. From there, the college determines a financial aid package. The other thing that can happen, though, is before this financial aid package gets generated, a student can get selected for what's called verification. 25% of all students who apply for financial aid will get selected for verification randomly. So if you get selected for verification, it's okay. It happens. They randomly do it. It just means you have to verify your income. They ask you to fill out a form, turn in copies of your income tax, other income, submit it to the financial aid office. They're happy, they process your financial aid package. Students always need to check the college financial aid website under their student account, because financial aid will put all flags. If anything they need for verification, if they need an extra form filled out, whatever they need, will always show up on the college's financial aid website. From the financial aid package, they award a letter to the family. This, like I said, can come out anytime from January till late April. This includes student loans, grants from the college, additional scholarships from the college, all of that. Your family award letter is what Heartland College planning coaches use to negotiate all the time. This past year, at least for me personally, was an incredibly successful year in terms of renegotiating financial aid. Every single student I had renegotiate their financial aid got more funding. That usually doesn't happen, by the way. Let me just say that. But I had all of my students got more funding. I had a student go back. She had a full ride at the University of Alabama, wanted to go to Cornell, went back to Cornell and said, look, got a full ride at Alabama, but I really want to go to Cornell. Cornell upped her package to be a full tuition ride, which was a significant increase. I had another student go into the financial aid office on her tour and just ask if there was any more funding she might qualify for. They gave her another $2,000 for the year. So don't be afraid as a student, once you get your award package, to ask for more. I always say, what's the worst thing they can say? No. Okay. They don't have any more, they don't have any more. But if you're a well-qualified student, and that's where kind of that, when I was talking about merit and those student criteria, that's where that can play a big part in that negotiation. If you're a well-qualified student for their college and they want you on their campus, they may be able to find some additional funding. So let's talk a little bit about student loans. Basically, there are student loans and there are parent loans. Student loans are awarded to the student in the student's name and are the student's responsibility for the entire life of the student. I cannot stress that enough. They are the student's responsibility, and no matter what happens with the student with their income, they will always have that student loan until they pay it off. The nice thing about student loans is that they have yearly limits. So for freshmen, last year it was $5,500 was what a student loan could be. Then there are parent loans, and college will offer parent loans. These are awarded to the parents on the student behalf. Both the parent and the student sign off on that loan. And they are the parent's responsibility while the student is in school, and then the responsibility shifts to the student when they graduate. And this is kind of how student loans are processed. If you want a student loan or a Parent Plus loan, you have to have a FAFSA filled out and on file with the college. They will not award student loans without it. Student completes their student loan entrance counseling. They only have to do this one time, freshman year. Every year, they sign what's called a master promissory note. This is, I am taking this student loan for this amount, and I agree to pay it back. If a student gets more student loan than they need, they can always return back what they don't need and put that back against the loan, and do that right away. Don't wait. A subsidized student loan has 0% interest until 6 months after a student graduates. That's the preferred type of student loan, right? If you're going to take a loan as a freshman for $5,500 and there's no interest on it until after you graduate, when you graduate, it's still only a $5,500 loan. versus an unsubsidized student loan, which will have interest from the time you take the payment on the student loan. Now, this year's interest rates are incredibly low. They're at 2.45%. To give you a little information on that, last year they were at 4.75%. So student loan interest rates right now are really, really low. Parent Plus loans, the parents complete the loan application. Again, they sign a master promissory note saying they agreed to pay back the loan. The current interest rate on that is 4.75. And the parents make payments on that on a monthly basis from the time they take the loan. Now, last year, Parent Plus interest rates were 9%. So if you have a senior college freshman this year, would not say it would be a bad thing to take a Parent Plus loan because that interest rate is incredibly, incredibly low. Let's see if I can make this smaller. The question is, why do you recommend you fill out a FAFSA even if your family makes more than $75,000 a year? There are 3 reasons to do that. 1, so you can qualify for a student loan if you want, or a Parent Plus loan. 2, lots and lots of private scholarships and campus scholarships will not be awarded and will not award if you do not have a FAFSA on file. And I would say that is the #1 reason to fill out that form if you have an income over $75,000 a year. Because even, you know how I talked about that merit-based scholarship that's based on grades and SAT scores that kind of push together and combined, they won't award it if you don't have a FAFSA on file. So that in and of itself to me is a good reason to fill it out. So what else? I would not pay a fee to apply for a scholarship. That, to me, that's a company trying to fish for advertising dollars. Most scholarship applications should be free. I can't imagine. Yeah, no. Don't pay to apply for a scholarship. What else? So every college calculates their financial aid formula differently and offers different grants, scholarships, and discounts. Public institutions have significantly less scholarship dollars than private institutions. So you will often find that at a public institution, you've been awarded maybe a couple $1,000s. And at a private institution, you've been awarded $30,000, $40,000, or $50,000. So know that no institution is the same. Each institution has its own formula and each institution has its own method. And so as a college planning coach, it can be really hard for me to answer the question, well, how much money am I gonna get? The answer is I don't know. Lots of colleges have that estimator on their website, so you can estimate what your financial aid will be from the college. I found those to be, they're a little more generous than the reality, probably about 20% more generous than the reality of it, but worth looking at, especially if you're looking at, and your child is looking at a private institution. They can be a lot more generous, and so you can see those. Let's see. Institutions look at assets differently and investments differently. So the CSS profile is incredibly different from the FAFSA and that expected family income. We talked about that already. Talked about that. Are the rates on the student loans variable or maintained during the life of the loan? So they are maintained during the life of the loan unless a student consolidates their student loans. So if a student gets a loan as a freshman at 2.45%, it will stay at 2.45%. And I would argue that if their senior year interest rates go up and they have another loan at 4.75% or 6%, they should not consolidate that student loan. That's going to be something students are really going to have to start paying attention to, because it's not going to be worth consolidating the one at a low interest rate into the ones with the higher interest rate. There are Parent Plus loans, though, and outside private student loans that do have variable interest rates. So pay attention to that. When you get your loan, it will say that, and you need to really look at that closely. Yes, there are reasons that they will deny a Parent Plus loan. If the parent can't show that they are currently generating income, Parent Plus loans will get denied. And I have seen that happen twice this year already, because the parents lost their jobs. And the Parent Plus loan they had already applied for, and the student went back and asked for more funding from the college because their parents had lost their jobs, and their Parent Plus loan got shut down. So yes, they will. And I would assume that if the parent has significant income to debt ratio, and I mean significant, that would affect a Parent Plus loan. So what else? Let's see, it says, how can students help? This is one of my favorite ones. Students, I always recommend saving half of your income from your summer job. Save half of your income from gifts for birthdays, holidays, graduation. Just put it in the bank account. Use it for college expenses. Use it for things like going out to dinner with your friends on Friday night. Not that that's happening for anybody right now, but it'll happen again eventually, is my hope. Apply for scholarships. Start looking now, and don't be afraid to do some of the essay scholarships. They take a little more time, but they can be worth doing if you can write a quality essay. Every past US president has an annual scholarship essay contest. Those require some research. They're a pretty good essay topic, but the students I've seen apply for those have used it for their AP US history class or a high school history class that they're taking as part of their coursework, and it can be a good opportunity. We talked about some of the scholarship websites. The Prep Scholar wasn't on my earlier one. I actually like Prep Scholar better than FastWeb. I think it produces a better result. It at least has more things that you can drill down to make it more specific to you and who you are. And again, those high school counselors, I can't emphasize what a great resource those can be. Teachers, high school teachers who know, like club teachers, National Honor Society, DECA. DECA has a scholarship, but your DECA advisor has to recommend you for that scholarship. Robotics, I've seen a lot of kids in robotics get scholarships from robotics teachers having connections in that industry. So those can be great resources for you. And those are scholarships that if you Google them, you're not going to find them on the web because they don't put them out there. They count on the local high school counselors to distribute those scholarships to well-qualified students. So my name is Amy Leach. I'm one of the coaches with the Heartland College Founding College Coaching Program. If you are here and are currently a member of our College Coaching Program, if you have questions, please reach out to your coach. They can connect you with me if you have a question that your coach can't answer, or contact your local college planning consultant. I'm going to put that screen back up. So, other questions for me? Anybody? No? Hi, Janelle.